for joining us here at Gen Con 2020 online panel, Making the Documentary. I am the director of the documentary Gamemaster, featuring these four people, the stars of the documentary. Let's introduce everybody. Jason Serrato, maker of Thug Life. Wave and say hi.
Hey, everyone. Hey, Gen Con.
We got Nashra Balagamwala, the designer of Arranged.
Hey everyone, welcome to Gen Con.
We've got Scott Rogers, the creator of Ray Guns and Rocket Ships.
Hello, Gen Con.
And rounding out the bases, we have Charlie Bink, the creator of Trekking the National Park.
Hey everyone, how's it going?
So let's get things started. So first of all, how does it feel to be the star of a movie? Charlie, let's start with you, since you're on my screen right
now. I mean, it feels cool. I don't really feel like a star. It's kind of surreal.
I didn't say a star. I said the star of a movie.
The star of a movie. Big difference. Big difference.
It is a big difference.
Yeah, I mean, it feels good. It feels good. I never thought something like this would happen. So it's been awesome to see the response and how it's been playing out.
Being a star is subjective. Being the star of a movie, that's factual. No one can take that away from me. So, Nashra, how about you? What's your feelings on after the release? And did it feel different on before the release?
I have an IMDb page. Of course, I feel different. Whether or not it has anything else, I have an IMDb page. That's all that matters.
Fantastic. And Scott, what's the warm and fuzzies like been for you?
Warm and fuzzies. I don't know. I was already a star before this film, Charles. So
he's right. He's right.
No, it's been really fun. Yeah, I live in LA. Jason can attest to this. There's you trip over camera crews all over the place in this town, so it's nothing different. It's just I mean, if we were at Gen Con and people were like, hey, it's Scott Rogers, that guy who's in that movie, then I'd be like, oh my gosh, yes, you're right, yay.
Well,
but no,
maybe next year.
I'm sitting at home in my underwear, it's not the star life. So
I relate to that statement a lot. Right now, sitting at home in your underwear, you can't see the bottom half of the screen, but that's what's going on. Jason, how about you?
I'm going to dodge a star question and say this. I think it was really interesting to see me on the other side of the camera with like my slow-mo shot. I just want to put an explosion behind me. That was pretty funny.
Well, if find somebody else, have them key out the background. I'm sure it's doable. We'll give you the footage. We'll set up a link. And by the way, I didn't say this to begin with, but this is really exciting because this is the closest that we've come to getting all four of you in the same room.
I know, it's kind of awesome.
It's possible. It is possible that three of you were in the same room at one point, but I didn't know two of you at that one point. Charlie, when you were in LA, when you visited, when we first found you at Strategicon, so Jason and Scott are regular attendees of Strategicon. There was a really high probability that all three of you were there, and we just didn't know it because we had not met Scott. We had not met Jason. I mean. You two go to almost every single one, right? Strategicon in LA over by the airport.
Yes and no. I went a lot as a kid, and then I had a huge break. But then the game designer paradigm shift brought me back pretty hardcore. I love the event.
Yeah. So, what was your family's reaction to the documentary when you watched it with them? Like, did they love it? Did they did they think every part was boring except for the ones with you? Scott, let's start with you because your family is in it a lot.
Yeah, they're represented. My wife and son appear in photographs. But for my money, Charles, the best part of the movie is when my daughter is in it because they're the funniest part of the movie.
You have a lot of personality, I remember.
Yeah.
And Charlie, your parents are a huge part of your entire story. They were in it almost as much as you. So what was it like for them seeing themselves on screen? Because you signed up for this. They kind of were dragged along.
They loved it. I mean, I liked it a lot. I think they liked it even more than I did. To get to see himself in a movie, because they didn't really know. I mean, they didn't know you guys as well as I did, so they didn't have as much of an idea of what this was all going to be like. So, when I sort of surprised them about a month ago and was like, "Hey, want to watch a movie?" and they saw it, it was kind of a mind blower for them. So they were ecstatic.
They
Jason, how about your wife?
They didn't realize that a film crew filming them that they were going to be in something.
Well, okay, honestly, because I told them, I'm like, hey, these guys are interviewing me and you and for this documentary, and they're like, we're gonna be in a documentary. And in all honesty, I was kind of like, I don't know. I mean, maybe I'm not sure. If
No, that's fair. That's fair because who knows? With any documentary, you don't know if something's gonna make it to the finish line or not.
Oh man, I asked Charles for 3 yeyears, am I still in the film? I assumed I was going to get edited out at some point.
So
I always just assume the worst for everything. So
funny story. Scott, as a joke, he kept asking me, "Am I in the movie still? Am I in the movie still?" Because I mean, part of it was probably being funny, and part of it was probably just the reality of like at any point, if it serves the movie, sometimes you get edited out of stuff. And I had shown him clips of the trailer, and he's in it. I think I'd even shown him like a still of the animation we were doing featuring him. And like really, really late in the game, when the movie was like almost done being edited, we'd had almost close to a final cut. I said, Scott, I got bad news for you. You got cut out of the movie. and I thought he would immediately realize, oh, haha, very funny. But he's like, oh, really? And I said, yeah. And he said, whose decision was this? And I was like, it's a mutual thing. And then I could tell as we were talking, oh, he thinks he's really cut out. And I had to tell him, Scott, you're not cut out of this movie. We're almost done. It's just not going to happen at this point.
I still don't believe him. Every time I go to watch the movie again, I expect to be cut out of it.
And he's like, well, I don't know. It's your movie. I don't know what's going on. And I was like, okay, yeah, you're not going to get cut at this point. Jason, what was your wife's reaction to the thing when you watched it with her, or had she even seen it?
She did. She watched it patiently. Board games aren't really her thing. She watched it patiently with an occasional comment every time I was on screen. And at the end, I think her very kind of predictable comment was, that was pretty cool, and that was it. It was a bit underwhelming, but that was okay. That was very cool.
So I've so far the best comments have been from both Nashra's parents and my parents respectively. Nashra, what did your mom say when you told her about the documentary?
The first thing she said was 1.5 hours? Who's gonna want to watch 1.5 hours of board game designers? Eventually she did watch it, because her daughter's in it and her wedding pictures are in it. And then she was like, I liked your parts. And English isn't her first language, so she kind of already knew what I was saying because she's heard me say similar things many times. But she was like, I had a bit of trouble understanding the rest of it, so we should watch it again when you're in Pakistan. And then she's like, but I liked the end the most. It had more of you, and you've become more beautiful towards the end. I was like, okay, Mom, glad that's what you noticed.
Sorry guys, tough crowd. Nashra's parents are a tough crowd. But my mom, when she saw it, she said, oh, we watched the movie. I said, oh, cool. What did you think? And she said, well, it wasn't really for us. I said, oh, okay. Okay, great. That's fine, Mom. Anyway, so, a lot of you have a very interesting experience that a lot of people will not ever get to have in their life, and that is being approached to be in a documentary. Scott, you have a funny story about your perspective on how we approached you and kind of what you thought about when when we first came up to you. Tell us about that.
Right. So I was at Strategicon and I was demoing ray guns. And I think I was in the dealer's room, which is where you can go and buy stuff. And this guy comes up to me and he's like, are you Scott Rogers? And I'm like, yeah. And he's like, did you make ray guns and rocket ships? I'm like, yeah. And he's like, my boss, Charles, wants to talk to you. And I'm like, what is this, like some sort of crime lord or something? It's like, yes, that was you, Jimmy. Jimmy was the one who came up, the producer of the film who came up. And he was like, he's on the phone. And he like gives me the phone, and Charles is like, can we film you, running your demo? I'm like, yeah, as long as you stay out of my way, sure, that's fine. But the funny thing was, and actually kind of the cool thing about it that Charles told me later was that he had already, in the film they had talked to IDW and they had seen the game and they were like, ooh, what's that? And at the show, I had made T-shirts to promote the. Matter of fact, I'm wearing it in your honor right now, Charles.
Oh, right, cool.
And I had my Ray Guns and Rocket Ships T-shirt, and that's how they saw that. They were like, oh, who's gonna wear a Ray Guns and Rocket Ships T-shirt but the designer of the game? And so that's actually how they found me. So self-promotion, that's, if you want to end up in a documentary film, make a T-shirt of your game. That's the lesson.
Yeah, you need a name tag that says that you made a game, and,
Right.
you know, or so another funny, the other side of that story is Jerry Bennington, who works at IDW, now the president of IDW. He was giving us a tour, and we saw all these board games on shelf, and we saw one on a shelf that looked really cool. It was old, pulpy 1930s sci-fi, and it was Ray Guns and Rocket Ships. And we were like, "What is this?" And he was like, "That's not even the real game yet. Like, that's just a prototype." And we were really interested, but you know, little did we know that a few short months later we would meet you, and you'd be in the movie. Nashra, you had another very interesting way that you came into this whole project. Do you want to tell us what your side of the story was, you know, from your perspective, what it was like for you, you know, and kind of your mindset walking through all the steps?
Right, yeah. So this was just like 2 days after I'd released the game and started, like, Kickstarter had launched. It was like right as The Guardian had covered it, and I get a Facebook message like that goes into my requests. I get an email and something else from this guy called Charles, who wants me to be part of his documentary. And he's just like, we're like close to New York, we're gonna come, we'll film you, we just need like 8 hours of your time or something like that. And my first instinct was, I was just like, they're coming to rob me. Like, I was 100% convinced. And then I was just like, oh, actually, I'm really busy. I have other interviews, this, that. And then Charles kept calling me. And I was like, all right, they're definitely coming to murder me or rob my shit. Like, I am not going to be a part of this. And then he's like, would you mind getting on a call? And then he's like, you know, we really need someone with an interesting story. And like, you're a female game designer. You know, there aren't that many. And after he explained it, I was like, maybe. So I agreed, but I asked one of my friends to stay home from work that day because I was just like, yo, I need like a big dude being there just in case, you know, they're robbing my stuff. I think it was after they brought the thousands of dollars of equipment, like 6 flights up my stairs in New York, that I was like, maybe they're not going to rob me.
That guy wasn't that big. We could have taken him. Anyway.
He wasn't, but he was my only like friend who was like, yeah, okay, I'll stay.
So, you know, my side of the story was this. I come across an article. I don't remember which article. We were in Connecticut because one of the producers, Wally Strauss, his parents were in Connecticut. We were staying with them. I was at a Starbucks, looking online, just doing work, going over questions for, you know, the next upcoming couple days. And I come across this article about Nashra Balagamwala in this game called Arranged, about arranged marriages. Prior to seeing this article, even like a week before, when we were driving across country, interviewing different people, I said to Wally, Wally, what we really need is a female POC game designer who's got a new game just starting out, who's got an interesting personal story, and is also really good on camera. I don't think this person exists. And then I see her in front of me on the internet, and I was like, I got to get this person. Whatever it takes, I have to get this person to agree to being in the documentary. Anyway, after a lot of convincing, as we've all just heard, you know, she said yes, finally. And then she said to me, but I should tell you, my visa's up in 2 days. I am leaving the country. And I said, okay, where are you? And she said, I'm in Brooklyn. I said, that's drivable. I will see you tomorrow. And so we packed up our stuff, went down to Brooklyn. We interviewed her, and I have always kind of thought, if we'd found you 1 day later, I don't know that you would have done it because you would have been packing up all your stuff, right?
Yeah. No, I had already packed up all my stuff. Like, I remember the outfit that I wore was the only thing I had left. And then for some B-roll, you were like, oh, do you have a change of outfits? And I was like, not really. I'm like living at the suitcase at my friend's house because my lease is also over.
Well, that's fine.
And yes, I am always moving somewhere. That is I'm moving in 3 weeks again.
Oh, is that right? Wow.
I
Well,
don't know where I'm going, but I know I'm moving. So we'll see.
so, I'm sure all of you have heard horror stories about, you know, I didn't know I was going to be portrayed like that. I don't like the edits. They were, things were taken out of context, all that stuff from either reality TV or other documentaries or whatever. This is a legit question. You can say whatever you want, and you're not going to offend me. How did you know that we weren't crazy?
I
Jason,
didn't.
let's start with you. Jason, let's start with you.
I had no idea that you were not, and there was never a question to me whether your stability would inform my decision. There was a couple of cautionary voices in my head from other people, like, how can you trust them to do the things right? I'm like, you can't do that in a documentary. You're just kind of rolling dice. They're rolling dice. So I know your tribe well, although I'm not, a card-carrying member of it. I've never produced a documentary. But it was just kind of, throwing caution to the wind a little bit, but also knowing that, your chances of successes were really slim. Most documentarians don't make it across the finish line. But I was always rooting for you, and I always supported you with my time. So, just more of a cheerleading effort than it was me being worried,
Well, we are grateful for that. Charlie, what about you? How did you know that we weren't crazy?
I mean, like I said, I didn't really know what to expect from you guys. When I first met you, I think someone mentioned a movie, Baristas, I think is what it was called. And that was
Barista, yeah. Jimmy Nguyen, producer on the movie, also produced a documentary, Barista.
Yeah, and so I didn't know much at all. I was like, okay, it could be anyone. But then I looked into that and I'm like, well, that seems like a real thing. So I guess I'll trust these people to let them into my house.
Awesome. And Scott, how did you know that we weren't crazy?
Still not sure.
Yeah.
No, it was, to be honest, it was when I met Wally. Wally seemed like the most responsible out of everybody. And so I'm like, all right, they've got a good producer.
It depends on the day. It
Depends
on the day.
Depends on the day. No, to be honest, the reason where I felt you guys were legitimate is you kept coming back to my house and filming things. And I'm like, if you're going to spend all this time and money to film, then of course they're serious. Of course, like Jason says, the whether you make it past the finish line or not is, so many movies don't actually finish up. So good for you guys for getting it done. Congratulations.
Well, thanks.
But yeah,
Thank
that's how I knew, was that you just were spending too much money talking to me.
Hey, if I could jump in again, when you took me to when you wanted to go back to my hometown, then I knew it was real, at least. I don't think you're not crazy, but at least then I knew it was real.
Oh, that's funny. Scott, when we went to your house, I don't know if you saw, but I feel like, when you probably told your family that we were coming to, shoot some things around the house and shoot you, and you were maybe going to be in a documentary, that your daughter was determined to get in the movie somehow. Because like, I feel like we had barely parked our car and unloaded, and she kind of like came out and she was like, there's cameras here. And like, cause I remember before we even got onto like your area, your property, she was walking the dog and she's like, are you guys here for my dad? She was very interested, but we're glad she was.
I think they were mostly interested in telling you how much they don't like board games. So, that they wanted to make sure that opinion, not everybody in the house likes board games.
Well, she was great in it, and so we're glad that she was in it a little bit. Nashra, I feel like the jury's still out, but how did you know that we were not crazy?
Well, I didn't initially, right? That's why I kept locking the door every time you guys left or came in, even for a second. I was just like, I will keep their equipment hostage if they try to steal my stuff. But I think over time, I think it stopped being like a director participant relationship, more like you just became my friend. And then, when I reached out to you when I needed to come back to the US and needed a recommendation for my visa and like having that. And then, I think just over time, I was like, all right, he's a friend now. He's not. And so he's definitely, and just having shared my personal stories with you, like a little off the record, and how I had been misrepresented in the media, I think you also took that to heart and decided that you had to portray me as accurately as you possibly could.
Awesome. So I should let everybody know who's watching. Feel free to type any questions in chat for anybody, and if we get a chance to, I will get to them. But let's get into some other stuff. Scott, you had, the joy. I know it's not a life goal for you because I know it's already happened once, but you got to see yourself animated twice in this movie. How great was that?
Well, all right. It was awesome. However, it's not the first time I've been animated.
Yeah, I know this. I know this.
I actually was animated in a video game that I worked on. The team surprised me, and I was like a bad guy in a video game called Maximo. But that was years ago. No, this was the first time that me was animated, and it was great. And to be honest, when you mentioned it, I think you were trying to keep it secret from me for a while, and then you had to let it slip somehow.
I think it was mostly that we had ideas of things we wanted to do, but we didn't know if budget would work, or also if that part would make it into the edit. And so it was like, I didn't want to be like, Scott, you're gonna be a cartoon, it's gonna be great, and then for it to not work out. So I just wanted to. I didn't want to commit to anything until I knew it was a sure thing.
Well, I have to say that the thing I'm most proud of is I think I now represent the game designer who gets a very tiny royalty. Although I have to say that in the movie I earned 5% on Ray Guns and Rocket Ships, but in reality I earned 10%. So I just have to clarify that right there.
So you get a little bit more.
I got a whole dime per game rather than a nickel. As shown.
I think it was 50 cents, wasn't it? I don't
know. Yeah, it's minuscule, right?
Yeah.
We're never gonna get rich making these board games, are we? Unless we're Weber, I guess.
Or Reiner or something. Maybe you have 600 of them.
Well, yeah, Reiner just does it by bulk.
Yeah. Nashra, you have an interesting kind of a story as far as like what you thought was going to happen with the documentary, because I believe you told me that as we were doing it, as we were going, you thought that you were going to be a very small part, and you were kind of like, what does this guy want? Why does he keep calling me? I thought we were done here.
Yeah, I was like, that day he came to film me. I thought that was gonna be it, because come on, like I'm gonna be in there for a minute or two, like, and then when you started asking me for pictures, when I came back to New York and you wanted to do another filming, I'm like, who needs all that for 2 minutes? And then as I saw the cuts, I was like, oh, okay, I'm really a part of it.
Yeah. So one of my favorite people to work on this movie is, of course, the person responsible for the camera shots while you were in Pakistan. so Nashra had to go back to Pakistan. That's all in the movie. And I said, Nashra, we need some footage of you in Pakistan. And she's like, I don't know who's going to do this. I can't. We don't have a camera. I said, just use your phone. It's going to be fine. Put it on these settings. It'll be fine. And do this framing and whatever. And she's like, who am I going to get to do it? And I said, literally anybody you can. It doesn't matter. Like anybody you can. They just have to be able to hold the camera and frame things well. And so who did you get? Tell us.
I asked my maid, the lady that works in our house and has been for a very long time. And she was just like pretty excited. She's seen me doing silly things around the house. So she records for quite a while. And so first time around, actually, when that happened, I asked a friend to do it, and I sent you all that footage, and you were just like, nah, this doesn't work. We need something, we need something else. So then the second time around, she did it, and she's filming me in the car at home, just like drinking tea. And a couple of months later, I get a message from Charles. So we have to add her to the credits. What's her name? And I was like, Nusrat. And he's like, all right, what's her last name? And now, not to be insensitive, but it's just like a cultural thing where, we always say Nusrat Masi, which means like maid after. You never say the last name. You don't really know the last name either. So Charles is like, Nashra, do you really want me to put in the credits Nusrat the maid? I'm not doing that. And I was like, yeah, wait, I'll find out. So eventually found out her father's name, and then we had it in there as Nusrat Iqbal. And it's funny because even now with my family watching it, they're looking at the credits. And I was like, did you notice something in the credits? And they're like, no. And I was like, Nusrat Iqbal. And they're like, who's that? So it is just, yeah.
Well, that's wonderful. And Asha,
she's been jumping around.
Yeah, she did a great job. I think she shot like 4 or 5 shots. We used like 3 or 4 of them. So she has She holds the title of highest percentage shot versus percentage of footage used. So that's wonderful. Jason, you said this before, but we visited your old neighborhood. So when was the last time you went back there? What was it like going back? Like, tell me about that experience.
I don't go back as often as I probably could or should or what have you, but I think when we shot that, I probably hadn't been back in a couple years. I still have family there. I don't see them as much as I'd like, but what was really pointing to me was actually standing on the places that we were standing and kind of talking about my formative years as a gamer. That was pretty impactful because I've told some of these war stories over and over and over again, and I spared you some of the, grislier ones, but that pathway, that place, that library, that park, that's where I ran from bullies, learned how to play D&D, all the things. So many things. So a lot of horror, saw a lot of experience, a lot of joy. That one walkway on the same pathway was my childhood home, my junior high school, and my high school, and then a couple friends in between. So there was a lot of, years of complex emotion packed in those. So it was weird. It was super weird.
Excuse me, Charlie. So, unlike everybody else, people who've seen the documentary know this, but your family, your parents, they're in it a lot, and it's not something that they signed up for. I'm sure it was just kind of like, oh, you have to do this, Was there ever a point where you were afraid that you made a huge mistake?
Oh yeah. Like, I won't go into all of it here, but like the story of my game is a story of like family turmoil. Like there were some dark times, and it went from like in the very first time I met you, everything was like, yay. And then, like a year or so later, when I get another call from you, things are not yay at all. But you're coming to Arizona, so it was, there was some tough times. But by the last time you filmed us, it sort of, the redemptive arc had sort of all played out. And so that's one of the kind of cool things about the movie is it just out of nowhere, that sort of chapter of my whole family's life was captured. So.
It's crazy.
So let's take a moment here. Jason, you have a really nice Zoom background. You figured out how to do this, unlike some of us over here. I still don't know how to do that. But just from chatting with Nashra, I know that she has some incredible Zoom backgrounds that I want to steal from her. Nashra, do you have those on hand to pull up for us right now?
Would you like me to? All right. All right. So this is fine. Right as COVID hit us. Then at one point, I was the girl I was looking at.
Oh my gosh, it's amazing.
This is that Reporter. I don't know if any of you remember with the kid that walked in on the Reporter. I just photoshopped him out of his chair so that I can happily sit on it. There's been a lot of photoshopping. Then I had, the right kind of corona. I had my toilet paper stash. Well, it started off, okay, so I started with the small toilet paper stash, moved to the big one over the, time of COVID. And then for my final critique, I had a sanitizer stash too. But for my final critique, I decided I would start with this. And then if I did poorly during that class, I would switch to this. So that's been my list of backgrounds.
But you don't have the this is fine one. Where's that one?
Oh, that was the first one.
I didn't see that. I'm sorry, I missed that one.
Yeah.
You should never tease.
All right. So for all of you, this is a question for all of you. Was there any part of the documentary that while we were filming it, you thought, oh, this is going to turn out like this, and you could see it in your head and kind of you pictured the final edit, and then when you saw it, you're like, that is completely different than how I imagined it. Jason, let's start with you. Do you look like you're thinking about something over there?
Yeah, I mean, I'm just gonna go back to like the hero super slow mo again. I never expected you to use a shot that way. I thought it was
really
the establishing clip. Yeah, and then I'm in like when I'm in like the super slow mo, I'm like, okay, that's adorable. I never imagined it was that kind of film where I was that kind of character in it or that kind of persona in it. So yeah, that was always gave me a chuckle. I laughed my ass off. I watched it again. I thought it was hilarious.
Charlie, what about you?
So there was one part where you interviewed my parents. They're sitting on that white couch, that was during a real bad time with my family. So like, it just happened that the day you were coming to film, we were like at each other's throats. It was really bad. So I really worried after you shot that whole, you shot them. I think I was like in another room and then you shot me. I was really worried that I was like, oh God, this is a really nightmarish thing is going to be captured on camera and it's going to haunt me forever. But luckily, like when I saw the whole footage, I was like, wow, these guys really classed it up perfectly. So I couldn't be happier. So
Wonderful, wonderful. Nashra, how about you?
Yeah, I think a lot of from the first time you ever filmed me, that was like you can definitely tell I'm like nervous in front of the camera. That's one of my first times in front of one. But I think I may have said certain things that I wasn't being too careful about just because I had no experience with any form of media or publicity. And so I think that was like well edited to actually get my true message across rather than like using it against me, which I think had happened in the past. So that was, and then also the amount of like, me making silly faces and stuff that you did a great job editing those.
No, there was multiple times where the editor, he and I were talking, and I was like, we needed some B-roll of you just out in walking around and doing whatever. And I was like, what about that one shot where she's she's in the park or whatever? She's like, it's good for 3 seconds, and then she starts doing a dance or something. And so like there was multiple shots that you ruined by not being able to sit still. Anyway, Scott, tell us, what was there anything that we shot that you pictured that you pictured in your head that you thought was going to be different than it was in the final?
Not really. I mean, you guys did come to the school where I teach and shot a class worth of footage that you ended up not using. So I was a little surprised that wasn't in there, but whatever. I get it. It didn't help your narrative. No, the only thing Jimmy, stop it. The only thing that I noticed was in the final cut, I feel like I mentioned Star Wars way too many times. And so, which is why I think in all the reviews, they've been referring to me as like the stereotypical nerd out of the four of us. So,
little does everybody know that we cut out most of the times that you mentioned Star Wars. So.
That's probably true. But yeah, no, there really was. I think the depiction, there was nothing surprising or weird.
So producer Jim Nguyen is on chat right now, and he's pointed out something great. Scott, unfortunately, I know you probably can't take the camera into it.
No, I'm not going to take the camera into there.
So Scott's bathroom on his first floor is lined basically floor to ceiling with Batman stuff, Batman action figures, Batman comic books.
It's the only room I can display stuff in, Charles, right? Can't you tell? Oh, wait.
It's all over the place. You wonder why people call you a nerd.
Brenda is a very, very tolerant wife. That's all I have to say. And I love her.
Yeah. So, you mentioning the classroom stuff that we shot. For those who don't know, Scott is a professor at the New York Film Academy, teaches a class in what?
Well, a lot of classes, but the one you came and filmed was about tabletop game design.
Teaches a class in tabletop game design. Mm-hmm. So if you're out there and you want to learn about tabletop game design officially from the school, you can go to New York Film Academy, learn from Scott Rogers himself. But we shot a class, and it just, for whatever reason, it just didn't make the final cut. It just didn't work with stuff. And leads me to my next question. Is there anything that we shot that you remember us shooting where you were really surprised, hey, why isn't this in the final movie? Charlie, let's start with you.
I remember doing a pretty good Bruno Cathala impression at one point.
Oh my God. I loved that impression. I thought that was, when I saw you do it, I thought it was in for sure, and then we didn't.
I'm not going to
do it.
sully it.
Maybe we'll release. Yeah, maybe we'll release that. Maybe we'll release that impression on Instagram or something. Jason, how about you?
Well, I was surprised that my animated sequence never made it in, so that was kind of a bummer.
It was X-rated. We couldn't do it.
I know. I really wanted to do that in the movie. I'm only, this is a me thing, sorry, but I think because I don't know what else you shot with other people, obviously, but the only thing I wanted to see more of was when you drilled me with the hard Kickstarter questions. I really wanted to see some of those make the cut, because I think they were great talking points, but I realized, they may have been not your narrative, but at the same time, it's great because now I've had the mic enough times to have been able to revisit some of those, and that's been kind of awesome.
Fantastic. Nashra, how about you?
I think there was a point where I came back to New York, I think about 3 months after you first filmed me, and you had 2 other people who I hadn't met before come do a little bit of B-roll stuff. I don't think any of that made it in, but
I don't believe it did. Yeah,
I think you covered a fair.
I covered most of it. Covered a lot of it.
Yeah.
Well, great. Scott, was there anything else other than the classroom stuff that you remember us shooting that just didn't make it in?
Oh, I mean, the only thing I was a little bummed about is because we have a really great, diverse student body at New York Film Academy. We have
you do.
We have a lot of people of color, and we have women game designers, and all the things that that often come up as criticisms of the industry. I thought that shot there was a really nice microcosm of hopefully what will eventually become the industry, right? We have so many students. Every semester I get lots of new students, and they're from all over the world, and of all gender, and I'm really proud to help get them out into the world, because probably in another 5 years, I'm almost 100% positive that the makeup of the industry will be changed.
I have to agree with you. So, Scott, are you bummed that we didn't show your Bruno Cathala impression?
If I had one, I'd be bummed, but.
Oh no! So you don't want to do one live for us right now. So anyway, let's talk about something else. What was everybody's favorite part of the movie, not featuring themselves? Jason, let's start with you.
No, pass.
Pass.
I'll come back to it. Come back to me. Look back.
I'll come back to you. We'll take a round and we'll come back to you. Charlie, what's going on?
Jason has actually not watched the movie other than the parts he's in.
I'm watching it now on my phone. That's what you guys don't know about.
Oh no, I didn't realize
through the film. I'm not.
I was going to be asked about parts not featuring
scene.
Me. Yeah, quick.
I kid.
Jason's gonna say, he's gonna say, oh, the first 5 minutes, those were great. That's the first 5 minutes not featured. Charlie, what was your favorite part?
I liked. I really like seeing the Klaus Tuber part of the movie. He's kind of a legendary figure. I think I'd only up until that seen like one photograph of him. So kind of getting to see his demeanor, getting to see that, how Sellers of Catan or Catan has become a family business now. That was, I thought, kind of relevant and interesting, and kind of made me think about my own situation. I really like that. I thought that was really cool that you guys got to put that in there.
And we were very fortunate to get to talk to him for so long. And I also have to thank Guido and Benjamin Teuber, his sons, who work with him. They've been nothing but wonderful and helpful, as far as doing different things for us, and just, giving us access, and, so big thanks to them as well. Nashra, how about yourself?
I think it was the part about Exploding Kittens where they were like, all right, we don't need any more money. So now what can we do? And so like the images of like people dressed up like the Taco Cat, and, everything else that they did, or hosting that big internet party. I think that to me was just such an exciting approach.
Awesome. And Scott?
Nashra took my answer.
Actually,
I mean, I really enjoyed, I know Jason, but we don't hang out all the time, so it's not like I've been to his house. And of course, Charlie and Nashra, I don't think we've physically met. But it was really fun to get insight into, these other designers' lives and see how making the game. It's nice to be able to look at somebody else doing their work and saying, I know exactly what they're going, or at least I know a version of what they're going through, because of, I've experienced it myself. That said, I think other than the Exploding Kitten stuff, which Ilan is always fascinating to talk to and and you know how he's brilliant when he deals with his marketing and all that. But I really like seeing the shots of the games being made, the factory producing, because we don't really see that much of it in the industry. We occasionally image will leak out of something being made, but I think a lot of people tend to forget exactly how what was it? Not the sausage. You said something else. How something was being made. You used.
Yeah, I said that. Did I?
Yeah, you didn't say sausage. You were like Anyway,
I mean,
the point is,
let's just say we were in Germany. I'm surprised I didn't say sausage. I don't know.
Wouldn't it be currywurst anyway in honor of Essen, I guess? But yeah, the factory stuff was really neat to see, and I mean, it's hypnotic sometimes, just watching those things kind of go and the machines go.
No,
so
yeah,
that was good to show that part.
So Scott, you actually got to talk to Alon in one of your own online talks. Tell us about the online talks and tell us about that experience talking with Alon.
Well, yeah, thanks for letting me plug this. At the New York Film Academy, I run a program called the Masters of Game Design. In it, we talk to well-known and influential game creators. We've had lots of guests on already. Alon was our latest. And I spend literally about an hour and a half asking him questions about his career. And it's available on YouTube, where I think there's going to be a podcast version of it as well. But hopefully I will get Nashra and Charlie and Jason on as guests as well. Actually, the plan was to do a screening of the film and have Charles and Jimmy and Jason, and I was going to invite you too, but I'm sure it might have been a little harder. But of course, now we can't do that right now. But maybe in the future we'll set up something like that at night.
Eventually, some stuff that will happen. What was a tidbit or an interesting thing that Alon said that you Alon Lee, creator of Exploding Kittens, that he said that you walked away with for that conversation? The one that's not in the movie. Share with us.
Oh gosh, Alon has already had an amazing career several times over. But he also is essentially the mentee of a person who I have a huge amount of respect for, a fellow named Jordan Weissman, who for my money is like the Leonardo da Vinci of gaming. That guy has mastered every discipline and has been years, if not decades ahead of the trends. And so getting some insight to what it was like to work with Jordan on various projects. These are things like, when they invented the ARG, for example, with Halo and I Love Bees and all that, and the Beast on AI. I don't know. The whole conversation was fascinating. I could talk to him all day.
So Jason, we're back to you. You can answer this. You can pass again. It's fine if you want to. What was your favorite part not featuring you?
So I was trying to think of something clever to say, but instead I'm going to give the answer I gave you last time we talked. Was my favorite part, Nashra, you can turn off your mic now, was Nashra's bit. I mean, remember being super emotional the first time I saw it and being super curious about Nashra in the game, well before I'd never seen Gamemaster. So being able to see it and the way you guys actually use her assets, like just the color palette that Arrange brought to the movie, that was always super special for me. Like that moment for me was always kind of like, it had the kind of magic I would expect just in board games in general, and to see that beat in the movie was like super, super inspiring. Plus, Nashra, hi, I still need a copy of your game. That's the thing.
I will get that to you. It's was in Pakistan, sold out, and my parents struggling to make some more, but with COVID and
Nashra, I have to say, I actually have, it's on my other shelf, but normally I have it on the shelf that's right next to me. But your game showing up, because I backed it through the Kickstarter, was one of my favorite game delivery experiences I've ever got in my life. This very interesting canvas wrapped package with all these stamps all over it. Shows you made me feel like a world traveler just by receiving that package. So that was that, and the whole production quality of it, the components and all that, the feel of it. It's a lovely production. So nice
okay, no. See, no. Now the bar is way too high, Nashra. The pressure's on. Now I want that experience.
Yeah, I mean, it's in the movie actually, which is one of my favorite parts that you've captured of my part is because initially I started. Firstly, I didn't think it was going to be anything. I thought like Kickstarter, I'd like sell like 50 copies at most, and then I'll just ship them out myself. Didn't expect anything, so I put the shipping rate at like super low, and then when I finally started to manufacture them, yeah, like they were just ripping apart everything. So then the local post office was like, we'll do it in these canvas wrapped bags, and like you have to seal it right at the post office. And then we're gonna like sew it and wax seal it just so that no drugs can go in. So that's so it has traveled.
Awesome. So I'd like to open it up for everybody, for each other. Do you have any questions for each other? And when I say each other, I am including myself in that. Jason, you got your hand raised. What's going on?
Charlie Bink, you say you're still trekking. Are you a through hiker, man? Do you backpack? Like, do you even backpack, bro? Like, what is your story with trekking? Like, how do you...
Well, okay. Honestly, I'm not as much of an outdoorsman as my parents are. Although, it does, trickle down. So I hike from time to time. South Mountain in Phoenix is pretty near to me, so I'll hike that mountain quite a bit. But I don't tend to be the type that plans long, I'm going to do the Appalachian Trail type trips and whatnot. So
doing pieces, just doing pieces,
One day.
20 miles here.
I'm in career mode right now, and then eventually career mode will slow down and I'll go into follow dreams mode. So
right on.
All right. Does somebody else have a question for anybody else on the floor? Or for me? This is your opportunity to strike up a thing that's been bugging you with me. Like, hey, how come, fill in the blank?
Well, here's an obvious one, Charles.
Yeah,
what was something that you were like devastated about having to take out of the film? You're like, I wanted to keep that in, but I had to take it out.
And I could fill the rest of our time with this. Like there was a few things. So there was a great discussion, and honestly, a lot of it involves Eric Lang. We interviewed him for about an hour, and literally every single thing that he said was usable footage. We had an embarrassment of riches with Eric Lang, and he told this great story. I'll tell it here for Gen Con 2020 online. This great story about how the first time he met Reiner Knizia. So he was working for Fantasy Flight, and he had to do some touches on one of Reiner's games. Reiner heard about this, flew into Fantasy Flight, and was like, all right, where's this guy? That's because Eric Lang was not a named designer at that point. He was just some guy working at Fantasy Flight, and he's like, it was me, So he had to play his version of the game with Reiner Knizia, and Reiner who's got loads and loads of experience, was able to pick out the problems with Eric's touches on the game immediately. And something that Eric said that's really funny, that I wish, this is one of the reasons I wish we could have put it in the movie, was that Reiner is like the biggest trash talker ever. Like, yeah, because it seems like he's got like a very put together, proper demeanor. But I think the thing that Eric said was like, he would like pull up a card, just like, oh, look, I have a 3. I guess that means you're dead. It's so early in the game. But what's Eric says he took away from that experience, and I'm paraphrasing, is he discovered a new version of mentorship from that experience, right? He learned a lot of things from Reiner. It wasn't just the textbook, like, positive and a negative. He learned how to be, he learned a lot of things from Reiner, but he also learned how to be a better mentor from Reiner. And I am sad that did not find its way in. One of the things that you got to do is, when you make a documentary, is make choices to service the movie, and you can't put everything cool in. You only got so much time. Attention spans are only so long, and you got to make choices, and you got to be okay with letting great bits go, and that was just one of them.
What are your not regrets, but what are the things that you couldn't squeeze into the movie, Charles, that you're really bummed about? Because we couldn't have been the only 4 folks you were talking to, right? Who are the other kind of like what are the could have been people or segments?
So I will say this: I've always been everybody else that did not that we interviewed. We only interviewed relative to like how big of how wide of a net that people cast generally when they do documentaries and whittle it down. We actually didn't talk to that many more people other than you four, maybe like 8 or 9 people total. And we got really lucky by finding 4 people that we thought would work. But the one person that I wish that we could have found a way to get into this movie was John DeClaire, who had made Mystic Vale, has made Custom Heroes, has made a lot of great games, a really great game designer. But he was just, his story, it just didn't quite mesh with everybody else's. He was just kind of in a different place in his career. You know, he's done very well. All of his games are great. And he wasn't as known as like, you know, the Eric Langs, the Reiner Knizias, and he just seemed to not fit with the narrative of the rest of the movie. And, you know, great guy, lives in Los Angeles. Very sad he didn't get to be in the movie. But it just didn't happen, you know?
He didn't even get a cameo? You used some clip though, didn't you?
It's possible. It's possible we used some Gen Con clip. You know, he was at Gen Con. We did shoot him a little bit at Gen Con, but you know, as a whole, he's not in the movie in a significant way, and that is something that I've always thought was too bad, that we could not find a way to fit him in.
Outtakes. Are you guys gonna? Because I know I saw Rogers flashing the Blu-ray. Are there outtakes? Are there like deleted scenes on there? There's
not. You know, we were not asked to make a special souped up Blu-ray version, and that might be something that happens in the future. But unfortunately, the copy that Scott has of Gamemaster on Blu-ray doesn't have any of that extra stuff.
Maybe we could do a riff track like the Mystery Science Theater guys.
You know, Jimmy Nguyen, producer, is giving out my number on Facebook. Says call Charles for the audio commentary. I don't know if I look like that or not.
He just said that you would just say, "Well, that's a good shot."
I said that. I said the audio commentary is just me going like, "Oh, that's a really good shot. That's another good shot." Speaking of all the good shots in this movie, I gotta say, the reason the movie looks the way it does is because of our DP Michael Cox. This movie would not be the same without him. Mike did a bang up job. The movie would not be watchable without him. Anyway, let's talk about something else. What is the coolest thing that someone has said to you about this movie? Charlie, let's start with you.
Ooh, coolest thing someone said to me about me. Ah, man, I'm on the spot there. I don't know an exact thing off the top of my head that they've said to me about it, other than just kind of being. You know what? How about this? I've been getting Facebook messages from friends who are the kind of friends you don't talk to for years and years at a time, that have just sort of said, "Hey, I pulled up Amazon and saw your face," and I was like, "Really?" So I don't know. It's been kind of a conversation starter for some old friendships to kind of catch up with, which has been cool.
Jason, how about you?
So. Yeah, I kind of want to I'm going to say a weird one, and that's it, because I've heard it from multiple friends. And the comment typically seems to be, I would have enjoyed the movie a lot more if I didn't know you. And it's because you use me as a Rocky beat, right? Because of like the first Kickstarter. Like all my friends know what happened. They already know how the Bible ends, right? So that was the one comment that always kind of put a smile on my face. I'm like, that sucks, because you didn't get to have like the full experience, you know?
I get it. I get it completely. Nashra, how about you?
So I think most of the people that I'm friends with who have seen it know nothing about the gaming world at all. And so it started with actually Scott's cover photo on Facebook, where he's like put together all the people that are in the movie, and they're like, "Oh my God, there's only one other woman in it." So it's I think that has been eye-opening for everyone else. Is just like, oh wow, that, like, learning about that. And then something that my mom also said, she's just like, "I think it's a movie you need to watch because you learn a lot about game design through it." I was like, okay, Mom.
All right, Scott, what about you?
What about me? That people have said.
Sorry, what?
the thing that people have said about
Yeah,
me
it's
being in the film.
the coolest thing that people have said about you. Yeah, the coolest reaction you've got.
The coolest
Most
thing they've
interesting.
said is that they're gonna go watch the movie.
I mean, that's pretty cool.
I mean,
what can you say?
know, yeah. I mean, there's, it's nice to it's nice to just have something that I can. It's kind of like a while ago I wrote a book about game design for video games, and the reason why I wrote the book about video games is because I got tired of telling the same stories over and over again. And so I would say, read the book and then we'll talk. And so now I feel like watch the movie and then we can talk, right? Because I don't want to tell the same stories over and over again. So what I'm glad is that my story is part of this larger story, and that I can say this is what I do and this is how I did it, and now we can go from there.
Got it. So I got one more thing. What has been a great takeaway, or what is not even a great takeaway, but what is something that you've taken away from this experience? Nashra, let's start with you.
I think for me, one of the most satisfying things, at least, has been the entire thing was documented and it was just emotional to watch it in terms of like actually seeing a visualization of my games being ripped up. But then and very often, just because I do get a lot of backlash for the game, I'm still getting it ever since the documentaries come out, and with Indian matchmaking, people in Pakistan are posting about it again, and there's just negative comments that go alongside it every time. But in this, through the movie, I can actually remind myself oh, actually the overall takeaways of it were good. And I mean, it's documenting the biggest project of my life. No one's usually lucky enough to have that happen. So
awesome. Charlie, what's your big takeaway?
Yeah, so for me, like I said, I really loved that. I love how you guys did the documentary by splitting it up with us and sort of our stories, and then sort of also showing just the industry as a whole. What is this thing we're trying to get into? And I guess for me, seeing all you other guys' stories, it was very eye-opening. It's easy to get your own tunnel vision in your own life and think that everyone has the same struggles as you, and everyone's everyone is on the exact same track. But I don't know, I really appreciated seeing very different people who are in a lot of ways have very much the same goals as mine and aiming for them. And like I said, the way you guys did the movie is great. For instance, I had never seen what the awards at the Spiel des Jahres look like. So it was awesome to see this is it. This is the dream. Here you go. And then you kind of lay it out for everyone to see. And even I got to see that, which is whoa, that was wonderful. So it's great.
Jason, how about you? What's the takeaway for you?
Well, I never imagined being the face of this game. I've made a lot of games in the past, and I never expected that I would be kind of, be broadcast in this way for Thug Life. It wasn't meant for that purpose. But now that I am, I find that if I can just inspire a couple of kids to see my face, because I do really believe that representation matters in a tremendous way. If I could, my game's not for children, but if I could take those kids off their streets and put them in my streets for a couple of days, that to me is a win. If I can inspire one or two children to get into gaming, or just find an alternate path like I was able to do as a child, then to me that's a huge win.
All right, Scott Rogers, tell me what's a big takeaway for you?
I don't know, man. I think I kind of hits a high point in my life. I don't think I can do something, be involved in something as cool as this again. It's been a real privilege and an honor to be included. I mean, to be honest, I didn't think my story was that different or special than compared to everybody else's. I thought everybody else's story was much more compelling and interesting than mine was. So to be included with these other designers is a big honor for me.
Well, you survived a lot, so I wouldn't necessarily agree with that, Scott. So
we've got about 1 minute left. Everybody quickly tell us what's upcoming next that we should look for, and where can we find your game? Nashra, let's start with you.
Working on a new game. Don't want to talk about it. definitely more controversial than arranged. So once it's out, we'll see. And if it works out, I'm almost done with the first prototype. Like it's getting there.
And where can we find the game? Or where can we find the range, I should say?
Arranged on my website, www.nashra.co.
Okay, Charlie, what is coming up next? Where can we find it? Where can we find trekking?
So yeah, Trekking National Parks, you can find on our website, underdoggames.com, or just look on Amazon. Most recently, I did a Kickstarter a couple months ago for Trekking the World, which is sort of a world travel game. Weird timing for that game, considering Americans can't really leave the country right now, but you can imagine yourself doing that with a little meeple. So
you can do it in a board game.
Exactly. That'll be out this Christmas. So,
Jason, where can we find Thug Life? What's coming up next for you?
Thuglifegame.com. Support independent game design. Go do it. Buy it now. Use the code GMSTR to get $5 off free shipping. I just thought about that right now. I'm gonna do that. I'm gonna do
Awesome.
that. The next thing for me is I am partnering with Al Gonzalez, who designed Cantankerous Cats, and we are pushing out his new game Prosperity. So look for that pretty soon.
Awesome. And Scott Rogers, where can we find Ray Guns and Rocket Ships, and what is coming up next for you?
Ray Guns is you can still Amazon and your local game store. You can go to either the Ray Guns and Rocket Ships blog page that I have, or you can go to my Patreon page, Scott Rogers Game Designer, where actually I am starting to talk about one of my new designs, which is called Comic Book Crisis, which I think is extremely revolutionary. The way that you play it, it's the high level pitch is it is a worker placement game that you can play on any comic book that's ever been published.
Fantastic. Well, Scott Rogers is also the creator. Since Gamemaster has we stopped shooting, he came out with a great game called Pantone the Game.
Yeah,
you can find that on Amazon and your local game store. You can find Gamemaster, if you haven't already, on iTunes, Amazon Prime, Google Play, Vimeo, all of the streaming places. You can also follow us on Instagram at GameMasterDoc and also Twitter at GameMasterDoc. I believe that's all the time we have. Thank you, the four of you, for joining us. We will see you sometime in the future, I'm sure. All right. Thanks, everybody, for watching.
Thanks, Charles.
Thanks, guys.
Bye, everybody. Be safe.